My startup partner betrayed me, so I built a better company from scratch. You know how some people talk about their origin story like it's this shiny cinematic moment where everything made sense, like destiny was calling their name? Yeah, that wasn't me. My name's Anthony Carter. I'm 29 now, but back when this story really started, I was just a broke 22-year-old software engineering student at UT Austin who spent more time debugging than sleeping. My entire life fit inside one backpack and a cracked Lenovo laptop that overheated like it was allergic to productivity. I didn't come from money. My mom worked 2 jobs, night shift at a hospital and cleaning offices in the morning. My dad wasn't around much. He left when I was 9. I wasn't bitter about it anymore, but that absence taught me one thing. If I wanted anything in life, I'd have to build it myself. And man, I didn't just mean that metaphorically. Back then, I used to take apart broken electronics people threw away. Old routers, game controllers, busted PCs, I'd solder them together. Make Frankenstein tech just to see if I could. I didn't know it, but that obsession with fixing things that didn't fit was going to define my entire career. It was spring semester, senior year. I'd signed up for a weekend hackathon, mostly for the free pizza and Red Bull. The theme was Data for Humanity, super vague but intriguing. That's where I met Ryan Pierce. Ryan was that type of guy who could walk into a room full of strangers and instantly make everyone laugh like they'd known him forever. Tall, slick, blonde hair, clean white sneakers that probably cost more than my rent. He wasn't a coder, he majored in business and marketing, but he had a kind of hustler energy I couldn't ignore. I was buried in code when he leaned over my shoulder and said, "Dude, that interface looks like NASA built it for robots." I glanced up, half annoyed. "It's functional. Robots get things done." He laughed, this easy, confident laugh. "Yeah, but humans pay the bills. Mind if I take a crack at the front-end pitch?" I didn't know it then, but that one sarcastic exchange would change my entire life. We ended up teaming up. He talked, I coded, he presented, I built. In 36 hours, we created DataBridge, a small prototype that could automatically sync information from different spreadsheets and systems, hospitals, schools, small businesses without them manually merging data. It was messy, it barely worked, but somehow the judges loved it. We didn't win, but we got noticed. One of the mentors, a venture capitalist named Allison Reeves, told us, "This could be something real. Make it easier, faster, prettier." I'd invest in that. Ryan looked at me afterward, eyes wide. "Bro, we could actually do this?" And just like that, the spark was lit. After graduation, I could have taken a comfy job at a software firm. They offered me $85K straight out of college, which for a broke kid like me was heavenly money. But Ryan was persuasive in a way that made logic sound like fear. "Anthony, listen," he said one night at a 24-hour diner. "We could go get jobs, blend in with every other dude in a cubicle, or we could build something that matters. You've got the brains, I've got the pitch. We could change how data moves." He said it like he was pitching destiny itself, and I'll admit I was hooked. So I turned down that job offer, packed up my dorm room, and moved into a half-empty garage that smelled like gasoline and ambition. We called it HQ. That's where SyncSphere was born. The early months were chaos. We had no real funding, just my savings, a $2,000 credit card limit, and Ryan's endless optimism. The walls of the garage were covered in sticky notes, UI mockups, code flowcharts, random motivational quotes like, "Sleep is for people who don't have startups." We lived on ramen, dollar coffee, and Red Bull. Ryan would blast lo-fi beats while pacing in circles, practicing his investor pitch like it was a TED Talk. I'd be hunched over my laptop, fighting a memory leak in the API. Sometimes I'd look at him and think, this guy could sell rain to a cloud. And sometimes I look at myself and think this might actually work. We built, we argued, we dreamed. SyncSphere's goal was simple: make it stupidly easy for companies to sync and visualize their data across platforms. No coding, no setup headaches. You could connect your CRM, Google Sheets, Slack, whatever, and SyncSphere would unify it like magic. It wasn't magic though. It was months of sleepless nights, debugging, and constant caffeine overdoses. We launched the first demo 6 months later. It was buggy, slow, and crashed twice during the pitch, but the investors liked the concept. And that's where Ryan started shining. Man could talk. He'd walk into a room full of millionaires and convince them he was one of them. His charisma filled in all the cracks my introversion left behind. But I noticed something. Every time we pitched, his language shifted. At first he'd say, "We built this." Then it became, "I designed this platform." Then, "My team at SyncSphere." The first time I caught it, I brushed it off. Nervous slip? Maybe. But after the 5th or 6th time, I started feeling that quiet sting, the kind you ignore because you don't want to start a fight. Still, I didn't say anything. We were brothers in arms, right? I'd built the back end, the core algorithms, the entire structure. He'd built the hype, the connections. It was balance. Or so I thought. Our first real break came when an angel investor named Tommy Hughes found us through a startup expo. Tommy was ex-Google, now throwing seed money into young founders who reminded him of himself. Ryan charmed him instantly. They were laughing about golf and Teslas like old friends while I stood there, half invisible, clutching my laptop like it was my only friend in the room. When Tommy asked about our roles, Ryan smiled and said, "I'm the product visionary. Anthony handles the tech side." That phrasing handle stunk, like I was a janitor for the code instead of its creator. But I smiled anyway. shook Tommy's hand, and told myself it didn't matter who got the credit as long as the company survived. We walked out that day with a verbal commitment of $250,000 in seed funding. I remember sitting in Ryan's beat-up Honda Civic, engine rumbling, both of us silent for a moment before he just shouted, "We did it, bro!" He turned to me, eyes wild. "This is it. This is how legends start." And damn it, I believed him. Money changed everything and nothing. We rented a small co-working space in downtown Austin, painted the Sync Sphere logo on the glass door, and hired 2 interns. Suddenly, we had deadlines, investors, and expectations. Ryan started dressing sharper, speaking faster, networking harder. I stayed behind the screen, fixing bugs and scaling servers. I began noticing more subtle changes. Press releases mentioning Ryan Pierce, co-founder and CEO of SyncSphere. Emails where I was CC'd instead of addressed. Investor dinners where I wasn't invited, because it's more of a business strategy night. I'd tell myself he was just playing his role, that we were still equals, that the world just saw the talkers first. But some nights, when I was the only one left in the office at 3 a.m., eyes burning from code, I'd think, what if I'm building something that won't even have my name on it? There was this one night, maybe 6 months before it all went south when I almost quit. We were preparing for a pitch to a big VC firm in San Francisco. I'd just spent 3 straight days fixing a data breach issue that could have ruined us. I walked into the meeting room, exhausted but proud. Ryan looked up from his slides and said, "Hey man, I restructured the pitch deck a bit. Just trust me on this." When I glanced at the slides, my jaw almost dropped. My role was reduced to technical lead. The entire presentation framed SyncSphere as Ryan's brainchild. I pulled him aside. "Ryan, what the hell is this? Why am I listed like an employee instead of a co-founder?" He frowned like I was the one being unreasonable. "Bro, chill. Investors want a clear narrative. Having 2 leaders confuses them. You're the genius behind the product. I'm the guy who sells it. It's optics." I wanted to yell. Instead, I just said, "Fine, optics." He clapped my shoulder. "That's why we work, man. You build, I pitch, 2 sides of the same coin." I told myself he was right, that this was how startups worked, one face for the crowd, one engine under the hood. I wish I'd realized sooner that some people don't believe in coins. They believe in crowns. The pitch went great, by the way. The investors ate up Ryan's charisma, his talk about data harmony and revolutionizing human-centric analytics. When he ended with our demo, it ran flawlessly. We walked out of that glass conference room with a commitment letter for $1.2 million. We'd made it. SyncSphere was officially funded. We went out to celebrate a rooftop bar downtown. Champagne we couldn't pronounce, laughter that felt electric. I still remember Ryan raising his glass, his voice loud over the music. "To us," he said, "to SyncSphere, to the future." Then he looked at me, smiling, and added, "We're in this together, bro, always." And in that moment, drunk on relief, success, and loyalty, I believed him completely. If only I'd known that always was shorter than I ever imagined. Success hits different when you've tasted hunger first. For a minute there, I thought I'd finally made it. After the funding round, SyncSphere exploded. We went from 2 guys in a garage to a full-blown startup with a glass-walled office downtown, 20 employees, and an espresso machine that cost more than my car. Reporters started calling us the future of data integration. People I barely knew from college suddenly slid into my DMs asking if we were hiring. Every morning, I'd badge into the office and feel this stupid swell of pride. My code, the thing I wrote half asleep with ramen crumbs on the keyboard, was running on servers used by actual clients. Real companies trusted us. My mom even framed the Austin Business Journal article with our faces on it. But there was a detail I didn't catch at first. That photo, Ryan was in front, sharp suit, confident smile. I was standing half a step behind him, laptop in hand like a sidekick. And underneath, the caption read, "Ryan Pierce, CEO and founder of SyncSphere." Founder. Singular. At first I laughed it off. Probably an editor's mistake, right? Titles get mixed up all the time. Ryan would correct it next interview. He didn't. As the months rolled, I started noticing how carefully he curated the image. At investor dinners, he'd introduce me as our lead engineer. At conferences, he'd talk about how he came up with the vision for human-friendly data. He never outright said I wasn't a co-founder. He just omitted it, like it was an unimportant footnote. Meanwhile, I was grinding 14-hour days, keeping our product alive, scaling servers, fixing API calls, debugging late into the night. Ryan was out there shaking hands, filming promo videos, drinking champagne with venture capitalists. The balance that used to feel like teamwork started to feel like theft. It got worse when we landed our Series A. The investors wanted a board of directors. Ryan handpicked every single member, 3 suits from the firm that funded us and 1 independent advisor who happened to be his mentor from college. When I asked why I wasn't on the board, he gave me that practice smile. "Dude, you are the company. You don't need meetings. Let me deal with the boring corporate junk so you can focus on innovation." I wanted to believe him. Hell, I did believe him. Until the first time I saw the minutes from a board meeting. Under strategic discussion, the note said, Ryan presented his proprietary system architecture and product roadmap. Proprietary system architecture. My code, my design. I felt my stomach drop like an elevator cable snap. By then, the culture had shifted. New hires didn't know our history. They saw Ryan as the visionary founder and me as the quiet tech guy who never left his desk. And Ryan fed that narrative perfectly. Praise in public, condescension in private. He started calling me buddy. You okay, buddy? You seem tired. Or worse, we need you to be more adaptable, buddy. Try to see the big picture. I wasn't his buddy. I was the reason the company existed. But every time I tried to confront him, he'd diffuse it with that salesman charm. Come on, man, don't take things so personal. We're building something massive here. Who cares about titles? I did. I cared because I was watching the company I birthed slip out of my hands like sand through open fingers. Then came the breaking point. We'd landed a contract with a Fortune 500 client. Our biggest yet. It was supposed to be my presentation. I built the entire demo, crafted the tech stack, tested it 10 times over. The night before, Ryan texted, "Hey bro, tiny change tomorrow. Let me lead the pitch. You can jump in for the demo part. It'll look more cohesive for the execs." I didn't love it, but fine. Teamwork, right? Next day, big boardroom, 15 suits, giant projector screen. Ryan's up there telling the origin story of SyncSphere. Except this time, I barely recognized it. According to him, he'd conceived the entire idea while struggling to connect his business data. He mentioned me once, my brilliant technical guy who helped execute it. Then came the demo. I plugged in the live environment, hands sweating, praying it wouldn't crash. It ran flawlessly. Applause. Afterward, one of the execs shook Ryan's hand and said, "You've built something incredible." Ryan smiled and replied, "Thank you. It's been my dream for years." Not our dream, his. We closed the deal, but I went home that night feeling hollow. I sat in my apartment, lights off, laptop open, reading that article again. The one with his face on the cover. My name didn't even appear in the first of the 3 paragraphs. I typed a long message to him. "Ryan, we need to talk about how I'm being represented publicly. This isn't what we agreed." He replied 20 minutes later. "Chill, man. It's just PR. I'm protecting both of us. Investors like consistency. You'll thank me later." I didn't thank him. I barely slept. For the first time since we'd started SyncSphere, I wondered if I'd made a mistake trusting him. A few weeks later, the board scheduled a performance review. That should have been my first red flag. Founders don't get performance reviews. The meeting was cold, sterile. Ryan sat at the end of the table like a teacher about to grade me. Allison Reeves, the mentor who'd encouraged us years ago, was there too, but she avoided my eyes. Ryan cleared his throat. "Anthony, we appreciate everything you've done, truly, but the company's evolving. We need leadership that can scale with growth." I blinked. "What are you talking about? I built a system that's allowing us to scale." He gave this pitying look that made my skin crawl. "You're brilliant, but you're too emotionally attached to the code. The board thinks your hands-on approach is slowing down high-level strategy." "Attached," I repeated. "It's my work, Ryan." Allison finally spoke. "We think it's best if you step back from daily operations and take on an advisory role." Translation, we're firing you without calling it that. I felt heat crawl up my neck. You can't just cut me out of my own company. Ryan leaned forward, voice low, rehearsed. "It's not personal, buddy, it's business." I walked out numb, carrying a box of my things. A notebook, a few cables, the old photo from the garage days. My keycard was already deactivated by the time I reached the elevator. When the doors closed, I lost it. Fist to the wall, breath shaking. I'd poured 3 years of my life into that company. Sacrificed sleep, friends, relationships, and in one board meeting, they erased me like I was a temp. Worse, they kept my code. Every algorithm, every script I'd written on that overheating Lenovo was now their intellectual property. I tried calling a lawyer friend. She told me the paperwork we'd signed early on gave Ryan controlling ownership. I trusted him to handle the legal side while I handled the tech. That trust cost me everything. The next few weeks blurred together. News outlets ran more features on Ryan Pierce, tech visionary. SyncSphere announced new product updates that were literally my old prototypes rebranded with buzzwords. I couldn't even open LinkedIn without seeing his smug smile. My phone buzzed nonstop. Friends, reporters, recruiters. I ignored them all. I was too angry, too humiliated. I stopped coding. I stopped eating. My apartment looked like a storage unit of failed ambition. There's a special kind of ache that comes from losing something you built with your own hands. It's not just sadness, it's identity theft of the soul. One night, around 2 a.m., I was sitting in the dark, scrolling through old Git commits, half drunk and fully miserable, when I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey stranger, you alive? Maya Rodriguez." Maya. We'd met years ago at that first hackathon. She was a UX designer who'd helped polish our early demo. She'd gone on to work for another startup in Dallas. We hadn't talked in ages. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Barely. She called immediately. "You sound like crap," she said, blunt as ever. "I saw the news. I'm guessing the headlines didn't tell the whole story." I laughed, bitter. "Depends which version you read. According to Forbes, I was just a developer who left to pursue new opportunities." She was quiet for a beat. "You gonna let him own your story too?" That hit harder than I expected. "What choice do I have? He's got the company, the investors, the lawyers, everything." "Not everything," she said. "You've still got your brain. You built it once, Anthony. You can build something better." Her words stuck with me long after the call ended. You can build something better. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I opened a blank IDE window. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, shaky at first, then steady. I started writing new code. Simpler, cleaner, faster than before. No investors, no marketing spin, just pure creation. For the first time in months, the noise in my head quieted. By sunrise, I had the skeleton of something new. A better way to connect and visualize data. Faster, more secure, built around privacy and ethics. The kind of platform I'd wanted SyncSphere to be before greed twisted it. I leaned back, exhausted but alive. Maybe Maya was right. Maybe losing everything was the best thing that could have happened to me. That afternoon, I packed a duffel bag, drove to a cheap co-working space on the east side of town, and rented a desk for $150 a month. No office, no employees, just me, my laptop, and a second chance. As I pinned a single sticky note above my monitor, I wrote one word on it. Novalink, not revenge, not rebound. Rebirth. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Ryan had taken my company, my credit, my pride, but he hadn't taken my fire. You ever hit a point in life where everything that once defined you is gone and all that's left is silence? That was me 6 months after Ryan kicked me out of SyncSphere. No job, no title, no team, no startup that once felt like an extension of my own damn soul. But you know what I did have? An old MacBook, a half-broken IKEA desk, and this stubborn belief that I wasn't done yet. People talk about hitting rock bottom like it's a cinematic scene. Thunder, rain, maybe some orchestral music swelling in the background. Nah, rock bottom is just you, alone in a dimly lit apartment, realizing that the ramen packet you're eating isn't even name brand. The first few weeks were survival mode. My mind was still replaying the betrayal like a glitching loop. The boardroom, Ryan's smug face, that feeling of being erased. But at some point, pain stops being pain. It turns into fuel. That's when I opened a blank doc on my laptop and typed 3 words at the top of the page. Project Novalink. I didn't know what it would become yet. I just knew I couldn't let SyncSphere or Ryan be the final chapter of my story. Novalink wasn't born from greed or ego. It came from a simple realization. The tech world had become a snake pit of exploitation. Startups were selling user data, lying about transparency, and pretending they were saving the world while milking it dry. So I thought, what if I built something that actually did what we once promised with SyncSphere? What if I made a company that connected data but respected privacy, something human, ethical, real? That was the spark. And when I get obsessed with something, I don't half-step it. I spent the next 72 hours straight sketching, mapping, coding like a man possessed. My apartment looked like a war zone. Sticky notes covered the walls, each one filled with fragments of ideas. Decentralized sync nodes, transparent analytics, zero-knowledge encryption, must be idiot-proof, design that feels honest. I'd crash on the couch for 2-hour naps, wake up, chug instant coffee, and get back at it. Somewhere between the chaos, I shot a message to Maya. She hadn't left tech after the whole SyncSphere fallout, but she'd gone freelance, working on UX design for ethical startups. Me, starting something new, smaller, smarter, transparent, wanton. Maya, you actually doing this or just dreaming out loud? Me, already 600 lines of code deep. Maya, send me the repo. Just like that, she was back. Maya was my anchor, the kind of person who could translate code into emotion. She didn't just make things look pretty, she made them make sense. And she was brutally honest. I remember her looking at my early prototype and saying, Anthony, this feels like you're trying to prove something to someone, not build something for someone. She was right. At that point, Novalink was still fueled by bitterness. Every line of code was me screaming, I'll show them. But that wasn't sustainable. That night, I erased half my codebase. I rewrote the mission statement to something simple. Data should empower people, not exploit them. That became our North Star. 2 weeks later, I brought in someone new, Jalen Brooks. We'd gone to school together, back when SyncSphere was just a dream. Jalen was a data scientist who'd spent years optimizing algorithms for corporate giants, but he'd always hated how his work was used. He walked into my apartment, saw my setup wires everywhere, empty takeout boxes, and a whiteboard full of mathematical hieroglyphs, and said, man, this looks like the beginning of a documentary about a tech genius or a guy about to lose his mind. Can it be both? I laughed. Jalen joined the team the same day. No contracts, no HR onboarding, just a handshake and a shared purpose. Then came Ivy Lee. She was a quiet, sharp intern from a local university. She'd been following my story since the SyncSphere debacle, said it inspired her to study ethical computing. I was skeptical at first. I'd been burned by loyalty before. But Ivy didn't talk much. She just delivered. Her code was clean, precise, and she saw patterns others missed. Within weeks, she was building frameworks that made Novalink's architecture bulletproof. We were small, scrappy, but damn if we didn't feel unstoppable. The product took shape piece by piece. Novalink's first version was a decentralized data sync engine with real-time transparency dashboards. Basically, if a company wanted to manage data without crossing ethical lines, Novalink gave them the tools to do it cleanly. Users could see how their info was being used. We didn't have investors. We didn't have press, but we had something more powerful: conviction. Our first pilot client was a nonprofit focused on health data transparency. They paid us barely enough to cover rent and servers, but when their CEO said, "This feels honest," I knew we were on the right path. Momentum started building. Maya revamped the interface, making it intuitive and warm. Jalen's algorithm slashed sync times by 60%. Ivy's modular security system made us practically leak-proof. We launched a beta, then another. By month 6, we had a waitlist of 50 organizations all wanting what we offered. And that's when the noise began. It started subtly tech blogs comparing Novalink to SyncSphere. Is Novalink the ethical successor to SyncSphere? Anthony Harris returns to the arena and his old company should be worried. I tried to ignore it. I didn't build Novalink for revenge. But the comparison stirred something in the air, especially for Ryan. See, SyncSphere had grown bloated and corporate. They'd gone public fast, cashing in on hype, but their product was failing silently. Bugs, leaks, scandals, they'd become everything we promised never to be. And now, their exiled co-founder was suddenly back, quietly gaining traction. Ryan couldn't stand that. The first sign was a sudden spike in traffic on our beta, except it wasn't normal user traffic. It was bots. Thousands of them. Someone was trying to overload our servers. We traced the IPs all routed through dummy accounts, but one of them slipped. It connected to a SyncSphere testing server. Jalen slammed his laptop shut. You gotta be kidding me. Maya looked up, jaw tight. Ryan? I didn't answer, but I knew. Instead of reacting, we hardened the system, fortified our defenses. I even wrote a stealth function that detected similar attacks in real time. Then I did something Ryan didn't expect. I smiled. He wanted to play dirty. Fine. But I was done fighting with emotions. This time, I'd fight with strategy. Ryan started a smear campaign next. Articles appeared on random sites claiming Novalink was copying SyncSphere's algorithms. He even leaked my own code, the code I'd written, and claimed it was stolen. It was surreal, watching my own work weaponized against me again. But I wasn't the same guy he betrayed years ago. Instead of lashing out, I gathered everything: timestamps, code commits, early prototypes, all with digital signatures tied to my GitHub. I documented every move, every false claim, and quietly sent them to a few journalist friends who still respected the craft of truth. Within days, the narrative flipped. Headlines shifted. SyncSphere accused of sabotaging former co-founder's startup. Novalink's transparency tech exposes corporate smear attempt. Ryan had tried to bury me. Instead, he buried himself. But here's the thing, that wasn't the victory moment. It was just the start. Because when I watched Novalink survive its first public attack and grow stronger, I realized something profound. I didn't just rebuild a company, I rebuilt myself. I was no longer coding to prove a point. I was building to lead, to inspire, to protect something pure in an industry that thrived on corruption. And my team, they weren't employees, they were believers. Maya, who kept our mission grounded in empathy. Jalen, whose logic kept us sharp. Ivy, whose silence carried brilliance. Together, we weren't just surviving, we were rising. One night, I stood on the balcony of our new, tiny co-working space, nothing fancy, just a rented floor above a pizza shop, and looked out at the city lights. I thought about that garage where it all began. About the betrayal, the humiliation, the sleepless nights that almost broke me. And I realized something Ryan never understood. You can steal a company, you can steal code, but you can't steal purpose. That's the real currency of innovation, why you build. And I wasn't done building yet, because the next step wasn't just surviving Ryan's sabotage, it was exposing him publicly, completely, and without mercy. And when that day came, I'd make sure the whole world saw who the real visionary was. People love to say success is the best revenge. Nah, truth is. And when truth lands in front of thousands of people, projected on a 40-foot LED screen, it doesn't whisper, it detonates. The moment came at TechFront 2026, the biggest startup conference in the country. If you worked in tech, this was the Super Bowl. CEOs, founders, investors, journalists, all crammed into one neon-lit convention center in San Francisco. Novalink had been invited to give a keynote on ethical data ecosystems, right after SyncSphere. Yeah, the same company that stole my code, my dream, and my name in the fine print. When the email hit my inbox, my first reaction was laughter, pure disbelief. Fate was literally handing me the stage right after Ryan. Maya called it the universe's sense of humor. Jalen called it a loaded gun. And Ivy just said, let's make sure the safety's off. In the weeks leading up to TechFront, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was nervous, because I was planning. I knew exactly how SyncSphere's backend worked. I wrote the skeleton of that system. I knew where the shortcuts were, where Ryan had patched my work with cheap hacks to make it look proprietary. If I wanted, I could have blown them up quietly through legal channels, but that wouldn't expose the pattern, the greed, the arrogance, the way the system protects liars until you show everyone the receipts. So I built a plan that would do both legal and public, clean, elegant, final. 2 nights before the conference, the team met in our small office, the same one above the pizza shop. We were surrounded by pizza boxes again, just like the early days. I laid out the sequence like a military op. Step 1, SyncSphere's keynote would show their new AI-driven transparency module. Step 2, during my session, I'd live demo Novalink's system built entirely from original timestamp code. Step 3, in real time, I'd show a diagnostic comparison tool that flagged plagiarized frameworks using open source signatures. Step 4, the results would appear live on the big screen. The kicker, the analysis would be running quietly in the background while Ryan bragged about his innovation. By the time I hit the stage, the results would already be ready to display. The morning of the conference, the city felt electric. You could smell ambition in the air, coffee, perfume, and desperation. I walked into Moscone Center wearing the same black hoodie I used to wear back when I coded in my garage, a reminder of where I came from. Maya looked sleek in her blazer. Jalen had his laptop bag like a weapon. Ivy looked calm, earbuds in, typing until the last second. We weren't the biggest team there, but we had the sharpest purpose. Ryan's keynote started first. The stage lights dimmed, the crowd cheered, and there he was. Same fake smile, same tailored confidence. It had been years, but he still introduced himself the same way. I'm Ryan Coleman, visionary co-founder of SyncSphere. I swear, my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He started with the usual tech-bro nonsense. Disruptive, revolutionary, redefining data. Then he unveiled their new trust engine. The audience oohed. Flashy UI, clean graphs, AI buzzwords. But I recognized every line of it because I'd written it. The way the color gradients shifted with latency, the adaptive cache visualization, even the subtle lag between API calls. That was my old codebase wrapped in a shiny new name. Ryan ended with, SyncSphere continues to lead the world in ethical data management. Ethical. That word hit me like static in my skull. When he walked off the stage to applause, he looked smug until his eyes met mine in the front row. For half a second, his expression froze. Recognition. Fear. Then he smirked again, pretending nothing was wrong. I smiled back. Small. Controlled. Dead calm, because my turn was next. When the announcer said, please welcome Anthony Harris, founder and CEO of Novalink, the crowd buzzed louder than I expected. Some people knew the backstory. Others just knew the headlines. The betrayal, the comeback, the underdog myth. I walked onto the stage, heartbeat steady, mic clipped to my hoodie. The lights blinded me for a second, and then silence. Good morning, everyone, I said. My name's Anthony Harris. A few years ago, I helped build a platform called SyncSphere. Some of you may have used it. A ripple moved through the audience. Ryan stiffened in his front row VIP seat. I continued. But sometimes, the code you write ends up teaching you more about people than about technology. Then I started the demo. Novalink's dashboard glowed behind me, smooth, honest, efficient. I talked about how we design transparency as a default, not a feature. Then I said, let's test that transparency right now. I clicked a single button. The screen split left side, Novalink, right side, SyncSphere. My diagnostic tool began scanning open libraries, checked some patterns, and architecture similarities. Lines of code scrolled like a digital waterfall. The crowd leaned in. Green text, unique. Yellow text, common library. Red text, code match, uncredited. Within 10 seconds, red started flooding the SyncSphere side. People gasped. Phones came out. Screenshots. Live streams. I kept narrating calmly. These red lines represent functions matching open source timestamps from 2019, written and uploaded by me. The screen highlighted my username, Anthony_dev. The conference room went dead quiet. Even the sound tech stopped moving. Ryan shot up from his seat. This is fake. You planted that data. I didn't even look at him. Instead, I clicked the final command. The display zoomed into a section of SyncSphere's code, buried metadata showing the original commit ID. Under it, created by Anthony Harris. The crowd erupted. People started shouting. Reporters bolted toward the exits, phones already recording. Someone in the back yelled, "Holy S, he's busted!" Another, "SyncSphere stole his work." Ryan tried to get on stage shouting about context and partnership, but security moved in fast. The organizers were panicking, whispering into earpieces, and I just stood there, calm as still water as the chaos unfolded. Twitter exploded within minutes. #SyncSphereGate was trending globally before my demo even ended. Clips of Ryan's face, pale, sweating, trying to argue went viral instantly. One headline read, "Tech visionary caught using ex-partner's code live on stage." Another, "Anthony Harris just gave the most savage demo in tech history." Meanwhile, my inbox flooded with messages. Investors, journalists, developers. Everyone wanted to talk to Novalink. After I walked off stage, Maya met me backstage, eyes wide. "Anthony, you just nuked him in 4K. Jalen was grinning. "Dude, we're about to break the internet." Ivy just handed me her laptop, showing real-time analytics. Novalink's website traffic had spiked 12,000%. We didn't celebrate. Not yet. We just stood there, absorbing it. Because revenge wasn't about screaming or gloating. It was about justice finally catching up. The fallout hit SyncSphere like a bomb. Within 48 hours, 3 board members resigned. Their stock plummeted 70%. Investors pulled out en masse. The FTC opened an inquiry. Ryan tried to spin the narrative claiming shared codebase and partnership remnants. Didn't matter. The internet doesn't forget live evidence. Screenshots of the metadata, commit IDs, and my username were everywhere. And just like that, the man who once stole my spotlight was erased by his own greed. A week later, I got an invitation to testify in a corporate ethics panel. Same journalists who once ignored my side now called me the voice of integrity in tech. It was surreal. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt clean, like I'd finally shed the weight of every sleepless night since the betrayal. The following month, Novalink officially launched version 1.0. Our signups shattered projections. Major nonprofits, startups, even government agencies wanted our system. We became the ethical alternative, the antidote to everything SyncSphere had become. And through it all, I stayed grounded. Because the real victory wasn't Ryan's collapse. It was standing in front of my team, knowing we'd built something real, something honest. No shortcuts, no lies, just integrity, written in code. A few months later, I stopped by the new Novalink headquarters. Sunlight pouring through glass walls, the hum of servers, the faint smell of coffee and fresh paint. It wasn't some massive corporate tower, just a beautiful, functional space filled with purpose. Maya waved from her desk. Jalen argued with Ivy about neural load balancers. Everything was alive. I stood by the window watching the city. Once upon a time, I'd stared at these same streets through the grime of a garage window, a broke kid who'd been betrayed by the person he trusted most. Now, I stood as the founder of a company built on transparency and truth. My phone buzzed. A notification from TechFront's social feed. Most viewed keynote of the year. Anthony Harris, Novalink. I smiled. Small, quiet. Because revenge wasn't the win. Integrity was. I'd lost everything once, but from those ashes, I didn't just build a company. I built peace. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.